Dave and Jan Dravecky are the founders of Endurance, an organization that provides support and comfort to those who are battling cancer, struggling with depression, and dealing with grief and loss. They started the foundation after Dave's Major League Baseball career ended due to a cancer diagnosis. A few years ago, Jan also faced a battle with cancer. Through these trials, they have been able to share firsthand how the Lord has worked in their lives and to provide encouragement to people who have dealt with similar circumstances. Please welcome Dave and Jan Dravecky.
For those that don't know your story, Dave, maybe we can just begin there. You had an amazing baseball career and so much of this, just the story that people love, and then you had this cancer diagnosis. Tell people a bit about that.
Yeah, it started when I was traded from the San Diego Padres to the Giants, and things were going extremely well for me. I had just gone into postseason play with the Giants in 1987. Even though we lost to the Cardinals, things were looking really good for me. In 1988, I opened up against the Los Angeles Dodgers, facing Fernando Valenzuela, and we defeated them 5-1, and I thought this was going to be my year. But by the end of that year, I was diagnosed with cancer in my left arm, my pitching arm, and the doctors were telling me outside of a miracle I would never pitch again. And so I had a choice. Do I retire and just focus on my health, or do I focus on my health and try and come back? Well, I'm a little stubborn, so I'm the guy that says don't give up until somebody says you can't do it anymore. And the bottom line was I had to try. And 10 months later, I was standing on the mound in Candlestick Park, getting ready to pitch against the Reds. And in my mind, I kept hearing the doctors say, outside of a miracle, you will never pitch again. And I was actually getting ready to pitch. And so that day, we defeated the Cincinnati Reds. I pitched 8 innings, and we went on to victory 4-3. And it was such a wonderful high, and I was so grateful. But 5 days later, I was in Montreal pitching against the Expos, who are now the Washington Nationals. And I was in the 6th inning, and I threw a fastball to Tim Raines, and my left arm snapped in half. And all of a sudden, I found myself in the valley with God. And over the next few years, I continued to battle with the cancer, and ultimately culminated with the loss of my left arm and shoulder. And that was a very difficult season in our life.
Yeah, I can't imagine what you were going through, and because it's not just the loss of your arm, which is already an incredible loss, but the loss of you. As an athlete, you spend your whole life, it's your livelihood, your living. You find, athletes find all of this meaning, of course, in being a part of a team and being, So I can't imagine what you were going through. Very often, the spouse too. When you're, being with someone who's going through cancer or through some issue, oftentimes is overlooked. But Jan, that was a big part of your story too. Is you were walking with Dave through this process, but that was in a way hard for you emotionally, I'm sure.
Yes, we didn't suffer pretty, as Dave and I often like to say. It resulted in, I started to experience panic attacks, and then I went into a deep, dark depression because I was taking care of everyone else and not taking care of myself. And it was a very dark valley for me at that time.
Yeah, and that really led to your ministry now. You guys have this outreach to people who are going through cancer, going through loss. And Jan and Dave, this came out of, you'd think like if you're a baseball player, celebrity, that you wouldn't feel alone, that there'd be a line out the door of people that would like to be your friend or would like to be there for you, but you didn't experience that at all, did you?
No, as a matter of fact, we didn't. I think as Jan and I look back on that time in our life, it was a very lonely season. And that's where I think God thrust us into that place where we had to lean on Him and trust in Him to endure the journey. And it's ironic that now the name of the ministry is Endurance, because we've learned that in our focus, in our relationship with Him, and as lonely as we felt, God ultimately started bringing people into our lives to be a source of encouragement, to be Jesus with skin on, and to help us through that process, which then led to us realizing when we get to the other side of this, we want desperately to let people know they're not alone. In this difficult struggle, Jesus had never left us. He never forsook us. He was always there in the midst of that journey, and he showed up through the love of people. And we thought that's what we want to do now, is let people know they are loved by the way we respond to them in love, to show them the love of Jesus. We want people to know that God is right there in the middle of their story. You know, Philip Yancey wrote a book, Where is God When It Hurts? And that is a huge question that so many ask. Where are you when you hurt? And we just want people to know that God's in the middle of that story, and it's through people that they get to see him and experience his love, his care, his compassion, the hope, and the promises that he offers through his son.
You know, we have a lot of people watching online right now, and there's, you know, mixes of news, but of course Europe right now is going back into a lockdown again. Child abuse is at an all-time high because of, you know, what we're going through, drug addiction, alcoholism. Meanwhile, people are like getting sick and they're dying alone oftentimes. What kind of encouragement can you give to people to get through this really brutal season that the whole world is going through?
Gosh, you know, Bobby, I could try and come up with some really clever response. But at the end of the day, it all boils down to leaning into Jesus. It's realizing how much in the midst of this, you need to know you're not alone, that God is right there with you, and he's pursuing you, and he desires to have that relationship with you. And in that, if you're locked in your home, sheltering in place, there are people around you. Engage with them, lean into them, communicate with one another, share the hurts, share the good, the bad, and the ugly, share the fears and the worries and the concerns, because in that you get great comfort from others as you do that. And in the middle of this, you know, I found myself reading the word more. I found myself praying more. Jan and I, our relationship has gone very deep because we talk. We communicate. We're together. We may not be able to go out and see a lot of people, but we're together. And this is a point in time in history where I think people need to understand we need each other desperately. And use technology like we're doing right now. Yeah. Use it. Take advantage of it. It may be difficult because you can't be face to face, but you can still talk to someone through a computer. That's a gift that God gives us, you know, but leaning into him, trusting him in this process. Don't let the circumstances around you distract you from fixing your eyes on him, the author and perfecter of our faith, and the hope that we have and the promises that come through him, that, as Bob Goff says, take a deep breath because everything's going to be okay.
Amen. Jan, what about you? I mean, you went through cancer as well. We didn't get a chance to talk a lot about that, but it's amazing that, I mean, what word of encouragement do you have for people right now?
That my trust is in God. And through that trust comes peace. And I can't tell you how much peace I have in the midst of so much suffering that I've seen. So, and I know that peace comes from my trust in God, because we've seen him work so many times in our life when we felt all hopeless. And so trust is what it's all about.
Amen. Well, we'll continue to do that. And we just appreciate you both so much, Dave and Jan Dravecky. We just are grateful for what you're doing, and we will continue to trust the Lord through this process. And we really appreciate your encouragement.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, guys. God bless you.